after nearly 20,000 hours of providing individual and couple psychotherapy, I noticed that the biggest word that kept showing up was this word called connection. And in my interviews on my own podcast, connection with all the thought leaders. And yet, if you look up connection in the dictionary, it's a very lackluster definition. It's when two things are connected, whether they're objects, ideas, or people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, whatever. Don't
Yeah.
think that's what they're talking about here. You look it up in the APA definitions, and the American Psychological Association hasn't even defined connection, except for the fact it's so interesting that if you go through the DSM, which is our diagnostic Bible that we use in mental health, and I shouldn't say it so casually. It's really a very fine tome that helps us get really granular about diagnoses, which is very, very helpful from the medical model. Most of the ailments have within it an aspect of disconnection. Let me just even bust it out. Depression. Oftentimes we're disconnected from the present because we're kind of ruminating about the past. That is a common feature of depression. A common feature of anxiety is we're future tripping. We're not in the present because we're disconnected from it, because we are thinking about a future that may or may not happen. To borrow from Mark Twain, I've lived through thousands of catastrophes, most of which never happened. So we're disconnected from the present. With trauma itself, dissociation is a common hallmark of trauma, including PTSD. And if you talk about heavy duty psychosis, which is a break from reality, well, that is disconnection from reality. So if at the heart of everything that we don't want is disconnection, it seems logical to suggest, and it's been my clinical and own personal experience, that everything we do want is connection. And it's at the heart of everything. It's the precursor for everything. When I met with you for the very first time, Amber, of course, you and I were both asking ourselves, consciously or unconsciously, is there a connection here? Is there something going on? Is this going to be good? When we listen to music, we're asking ourselves, do I feel connected to it? Sometimes we pretend that we feel a connection to it because we don't want to be left out, but we feel the inauthenticity when we say, oh yeah, I love that artist, when we really don't. So an authentic connection is what we're looking for in this dash between our birth date and our death date. No one has negated this idea. And so I decided to take on the task of defining connection, because the definitions really were lackluster at best. And in so doing, I basically brought on 10 other licensed mental health practitioners to help me co-create a working definition. And bottom line, spoiler alert, it's when we come alive, it's life force. You know it when you've got that connection. That's what the pages of describing connection include. And I didn't want to just look at connection like there are books on connecting with your spouse, connecting with your children, connecting with your clients. But what about just connection in and of itself? What about the ways we connect with ourselves? Almost imagining kind of an archery target with the bullseye being ourselves. The next ring would be connecting with others. And the ring outside that would be connecting with the world. The world could include things like our work. It could include art. It could include nature, our ancestry. And then in the fourth circle, it's connecting with something greater. For religious people, it might mean connecting with their religion. For the most orthodox atheist, going to the Grand Canyon, which I know is not very far from you, and they say, wow, well, they're probably experiencing awe. Awe is a sign that something greater is transpiring. And in our brains, when we experience awe, it's very similar in terms of the presentation of our neurochemicals and the physiological presentation as when we ingest psilocybin, the psychoactive component to magic mushrooms. We become less self-focused. We become more other-focused. So connecting to something greater is really crucial for our experience of being alive. So it's the four ways we connect is what I had gotten into. And I would even go so far as saying that you and I, Amber, as we connect, are doing what Martin Buber described as I and thou. It's not an I and it experience. You and I are seeing each other as spiritual beings who have feelings and our own experiences. We're treating each other with that kind of kindness, compassion, and respect.